Hello, beautiful alchemist. Happy September. My name is Yolanda, also known as the Energetic Alchemist and host of Reiki Radio podcast. If you are new to the community, welcome. If you've been here for some time, thank you for still being a part. Before I get into the energy of September, I have to start with letting you know why I'm starting off this video with my gratitude for your presence. On September 4th, I will be celebrating two anniversaries, one being the 12-year anniversary of Reiki Radio. I started Reiki Radio back in 2013. I had no idea what podcasting was. I had no idea if anyone was listening or if they ever would. But at the time, I was a few years into my Reiki practice, and I was having some very interesting experiences on my healing journey that at the time I didn't hear many people talking about. And so I wanted to create a space where we could have open, honest conversations about what healing looks like, what was working for me at that time, what I was experiencing as a practitioner of Reiki meditation and intuitive development. And part of the reason was not only did I want to start to build community and conversation around this, I also wanted to be very transparent and honest about what my personal experiences were, so that if there was anyone else going through anything similar, that they would know, as I had found out, that they weren't practicing wrong or doing anything wrong if they started going through what some may call a dark night. I like to call it the illumination of the soul, but others may just call it a healing cycle. Back then, at the time when I first got attuned to Reiki and started meditating and doing all of these different classes, there was a lot of focus on the light and shiny aspects of this work. And there wasn't much talk about, again, what happens, the true experience of our healing processes. But simultaneously, these tools, such as Reiki, also were paving the way for me to understand myself differently. The healing process was illuminating for me what my wounds were, what my behaviors were, what my patterns were, what my beliefs had been. It gave me a lot of understanding about not just me as a person and how I was functioning, but also a wider lens and curiosity about life itself. And it also started to break me into this deep level of compassion, having understanding for what I saw other people going through and struggling with. Now, for me, this was huge because at the time, I was pretty rigid in my mind. I was pretty critical. I was pretty, I don't know, I was a lot of different things that I really didn't realize, or at the very least, I would have justified why I was the way I was, rather than, again, understanding where these behaviors, thought forms, and patterns came from, how they were impacting me in my life, but also my relationship to everyone and everything. So I started to recognize that while I was going through what felt like a healing crisis, I was simultaneously being held by the intelligence of love and compassion. Reiki and meditation both helped me so much in illuminating and changing my perspectives and healing aspects of myself that I didn't even realize were impacting me in would say in a heavy kind of way. So I decided to start Reiki Radio podcast. I wanted to talk about all of it. And again, I wanted to share so that anyone who was going through something similar would know that they weren't alone, they weren't doing it wrong, and that there was beauty in the healing that was occurring. And that it can be an easier process when we stop resisting. But I also wanted to share from my personal lens of experience what Reiki was doing, how it was really causing these changes within my awareness, my way of being, my understanding of life in general. And again, the reason I wanted to have these conversations and share is because I didn't hear much talk about the full scope and spectrum of what this work was at the time. In fact, I would even say the first classes that I took of Reiki, while my teachers did say, yes, you should do hands-on healing for yourself and you should practice on yourself. Again, there wasn't really any discussion around what that would do, what the effects would be, what was the purpose. But there was a lot of emphasis placed on practicing on others. And in the community as a whole at the time, which is very, very beautiful, there were so many practitioners who wanted to help everyone else, that wanted to help to support, initiate healing, hold space, all of these things for other people. And again, while that's lovely, and listen, I gave a lot of emphasis and focus on that too, and I'm glad that I did. You learn a lot. There's a lot that we learn in holding space for other people. And again, understanding the dynamics of energy work and understanding the dynamics of the healing process and understanding the uniqueness of all of our paths. There are even some clients that you may work with that mirror back to you some things that are very similar to your own life experience, and it just gives you another lens. There's a lot of beauty in holding space and practicing with other people. However, I can say from firsthand experience, again, for me personally, the most important factor within this work was the work that was directed towards my own healing. So that's how Reiki Radio came about. I just wanted to get in and have bigger and more honest and open conversations about all of this. I'm very excited now that 12 years later, there are more conversations happening, whether through other podcasts, blogs, books, and all of the sort. In fact, I recently just shared an episode on Reiki Radio where I had a conversation with one of my teachers, Franz Steiner. And I mentioned in the show that he was actually, I think, one of the first interviews that I had of someone that I didn't know personally. Because prior to that, Reiki Radio was, for the most part, just me talking by myself. It was like a solo cast of me sharing what was working, what I was learning, and again, the truth of what we may experience in this journey. So, well, let me back up and say Reiki Radio started initially with me and my friend Ethel. I asked her, will you do this podcast thing with me? Again, I was completely naive about what podcasting was. And thankfully she said yes. So we started Reiki Radio together. Then at some point she decided to do a podcast of her own and just focus on other aspects of her own work. So it ended up being just me on Reiki Radio. But anyway, fast forward, I received an email asking me to read this book called Inner Heart of Reiki, Discovering Your True Self. And the author was Franz Steiner. And the publisher sent me a PDF of the book. And I read it and I was so excited because this was now years into my practice that I came across a book that was speaking to everything I was talking about and sharing on Reiki Radio, the truth of what Reiki was illuminating for me and what it was pointing to. Now, the brilliance of this book, why I'm so thankful for it, is because even though I was having these experiences directly, I wasn't taught that this is what Reiki was or what it was pointing to or what it was really about. Just quite frankly, I wasn't taught what it was actually really about, bigger picture. And so when I came across Franz's book and I interviewed him for the first time and I had the conversation with him, I was so excited because now someone was making sense of what my experiences had been. Up until that point, I had gotten to a point where I thought, I don't know what Reiki is, and maybe it's not what I'm practicing because this is not what my teacher said. Franz's book gave me this clear understanding that what I was experiencing was pointing to the system of Reiki, and the system of Reiki was pointing to what I was experiencing. So from that point on, I don't know how or why I started getting a lot of requests to interview all different people. And so the podcast then started changing. And this was around, I think, 2017. So a few years after Reiki Radio had started already. And it has just evolved since then. 12 years later, I primarily do interviews. Sometimes I will still do solo cast here and there. However, I figure if you want to know more about my journey, you will either listen to the episodes in the archive. If you want to know what's going on with me more recently in terms of Reiki and my work, you can catch me on other podcasts where I am interviewed by other people. But I really enjoy bringing to the community diversity in perspective, diversity in practice, diversity in points of view, because everything is not for everyone. And all of us have unique stories, unique journeys, unique interests. So, September 4th, I will be celebrating 12 years of sharing with you here on Reiki Radio. And again, I'm deeply grateful and appreciative that it's gone this long. I mean, just to even say the number 12 years sounds wild to me. I can't, I mean, again, when I started, not only did I not know if anyone would listen, I'm positive I didn't have any idea that I would have done this for even a year, let alone 12. So part of what has kept me doing the podcast is you. So when I say that I'm thankful for your presence and I'm thankful for your support, and I'm so thankful that many of you share Reiki Radio with your communities, with your students, with your friends, with whomever you think will benefit from the content, I appreciate it deeply because it's why Reiki Radio still exists. In fact, there was a few years into doing the podcast. I don't remember how long, but at some point I felt like I had nothing else to say. And this is before the interviews started. I had done a few years of solo casting, telling you about my journey, telling you what I was learning, telling you what was beneficial to me in hopes that it would support you. But I got to a point where I felt like I had nothing left to say. It's like, I think I've said it all and I'm going to stop doing the podcast. And that's what I did. And I took a year off. Interestingly, what happened in that year, I really didn't know that many people were listening. But when I stepped away, I started getting emails from some of you who, started out listening to the show, asking where I went, asking if I was coming back. And so that inspired me and encouraged me to come back to the podcast. And shortly after was when the interview started. So again, I thank you so much. You can't imagine how much just sharing with you on Reiki Radio and meeting all of these different teachers and practitioners, and even meeting so many of the people that I get to work with as now my students and clients, it has changed my life. And Reiki Radio really has been the catalyst, the reason, the platform of connection for me with you. And so again, I thank you. Cheers to 12 years, and we'll see how it continues to evolve. So aside from celebrating 12 years of Reiki Radio, on September 4th, and this wasn't planned, it just happened to be true, on September 4th, 2019, which was 6 years ago, I met and had a conversation with the artist who did the artwork for my Oracle deck, the Energetic Alchemist Oracle. And on that day, she and I had a conversation on the phone. I explained the project to her and she was on board. And that was the day that we initiated the creation of the Energetic Alchemist Oracle. And I can't tell you how much I love this deck. It's anyway, I won't go into that. If you want to know more about the creation of the deck and even watch the conversation between the artist and I, the first time she and I actually met and saw each other was on Zoom and was after the deck was completed. The deck itself, again, we started the project in 2019 and it was all through email. I believe the artwork took about a year to complete. And at that time, of course, we were in the height of the pandemic. And at the time, many of you who listen to the show know, I lost, well, three of my friends transitioned back to back during that time. One, two passed in 2020 and one passed away early 2021. So I was doing a lot of traveling at the time, from 2020 until 2022, the end of 2022, 2023. I was traveling a lot between the East Coast and the West Coast. And so because of everything that was going on, it took me a while to finish the guidebook that goes along with the Oracle deck because I had to write descriptions for every card, and there are 74 cards in the deck. So that's a lot of descriptions to write. So it took a little bit for me to finish all of that. Not to mention, this is the deck. If you're watching this video, you can see this is the box that it comes in, and you can see how beautifully designed the box is. Aside from the artist who did the artwork for the deck, my friend Turtle, who's a graphic artist, did the design and artwork for the box. And that was a whole nother journey that both of us, were kind of learning as we went through that process. And it was, it took some time. And she also designed and created the format for the guidebook that comes with the deck. And Turtle took the artwork of the artist to make sure that the cards themselves would look like oracle cards with putting the borders, the titles, all of these things. So this was a labor of love, and it took a few years to actually complete. And when the boxes came, so this is an independent deck. This wasn't through a publisher. I did it myself, paid out of pocket directly. And so I had to have a minimum order of decks. And so you can imagine, like, all of these boxes showed up with all of these decks, and it was overwhelming. It took up my whole entryway, and it was also very exciting because this thing that I imagined that I wanted to create to share with all of you finally came to life. So that all started officially 6 years ago. So on September 4th, I will be celebrating, again, 12 years of Reiki Radio and 6 years of the start of the Energetic Alchemist Oracle, but it took a few years before it came to be. So I just want to thank you all again sincerely for being here, for supporting my work, for being so kind and sharing my work and the podcast. And those of you who have purchased the Oracle deck, I thank you for that support. It means the world. It's exciting to know that this labor of love reached so many of you and that you have your own copy. It's in your hands. Those of you who are in Oracle school, even right now, it is a pleasure to teach and share how to work with your intuition, how to work with Oracle specifically, and how to understand each of these 74 cards and their symbolism and the hidden meaning. So I didn't think this intro was going to take so long, but I just had to say thank you so much for being a part of my journey, as you all are. Even if I've never met, even if we never spoken, obviously, just you being someone who listens to the podcast or any connection to the work that I do, it's been a support and an encouragement on my path. So thank you very much. So speaking of this, as I am reflecting, this month is going to invite a lot of reflection for us as well. September, I, want to say just from the top, this energy this month is about big change. Big, 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 big changes, but the changes will be specifically directed towards our minds, our thought processes, our understanding of things, but also the processes and how we are getting things done in our day to day. And for some of us, there will be changes in how we are navigating our overall wellness, and not just at a physical level, but mental, emotional, energetic. So, change in our routine, change in our care for ourselves, change in, again, our understanding, our views, our perspectives, and change in our processes. Now, I just want to emphasize when we say change, that doesn't mean because, something's bad. This is change is a way to elevate in a lot of ways. Change helps us evolve. Change helps us move forward. And even sometimes when the changes are a bit uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that it's not paving the way for us to have a more elevated or evolved experience in our path. So we start this month out with the energy of Virgo. Now, last month we were in Leo season, and Leo is ruled by the sun. And it is that energy that brings a lot of focus to ourselves, that there's illumination of our passions, our creativity, our relationship to being seen and what it is we might be seen and known for. But you may have had last month a lot of insight or inspiration about, again, what you were connected to in terms of your passion, maybe some creative ideas, maybe, again, has some reflection on how you are presenting yourself to the world. But this month, we move out of that fixed fire energy into mutable earth, which is changeable earth. We move into Virgo. And so Virgo brings us out of that big flare of the lion and says, now look at what has illuminated for you. Those projects, self-identity, your passions, your talents, whatever it is that was illuminating, that felt so big and bold and possible for you. Virgo says, let's really examine this with a fine-tooth comb and get real about what matters, what to prioritize, and where even some aspects of your point of focus can be refined, where some aspects of how you're already in process and doing things can be refined. What will make you and your process more effective? So you can have a bit of consideration for what it is that has been highlighted for you, what's your personal focus right now, what is top of mind for you recently. And then again, if you kind of zoom out to see the bigger picture, what is it that would support whatever your focus is? Where can you get more real, more efficient, more focused? So this whole month again, I am even titling this Revisions and Values, because by the end of the month we'll be in Libra and we'll get more into what it is that we value. But the start of this month, we definitely are going to be more aware of what may be ready to change or do differently in our lives for the sake of our evolution and forward motion. And again, it's all perspective. You can hear this and go like, oh gosh, that sounds terrible, but does it? What if, again, having the flexibility to allow things to be refined or adapted in some way could make things easier, better, more exciting, more profitable, more prosperous, more lively for you? So, at the start of this month, oh, before I get into that, I always like to point out as well that the planet that is ruling this sign is Mercury. Mercury rules Virgo. This is why there is a lot of emphasis and attention on our mind, our mental processes, how we are perceiving what it is we understand. And, I always think of Virgo also in a simplified way is like trimming the fat, getting to what matters, not wasting a lot of time on just elements that aren't useful in whatever our process or our way may be. So I'm looking for the card of the month, which is the Mystic, and I will get to that before we end. But on September 1st, we start this month out with Saturn, the planet that it's considered like the planet of, restriction and limitations. It's more of a contracted type of energy. But really, what it boils down to is it highlights our responsibility. It highlights for us where we may have lessons that will support us in our growth. A lot of times we hear Saturn or people hear, that, oh, this is going to really reel you into your responsibilities. And it can sound daunting to people like, ugh, who wants to do that? But again, it's for your evolution. It's to support your way forward. It is to add to your wisdom. It is to help and refine the ways that you're doing things, so you can be, well, again, more wise, but also more accountable, more responsible as a human. And a lot of people also will point out that there is reward for this, right? Like when we are diligent and accountable and responsible to what it is we need to show up to in our lives, the facing our lessons and our challenges, we gain a lot of wisdom and insight, and that in of itself is a reward, but you don't know what else may open up as possibility and potential. Well, anyway, this planet is going retrograde in the sign of Pisces. Now, we know that retrograde is where it seems like the energy of those planets are going backwards. So it's like taking a inward approach to this energy rather than it being just like an outward projection. So this energy, Saturn, is having a relationship with being in the sign of Pisces. Now, Pisces is more of, we'll say, more of a fluid, free flowing type of energy, often associated with, I would say this wildly expansive part of our consciousness, the creative, the poetic, the spiritual, the wisdom and the insight that's way beyond the analytical mind. Well, Saturn, especially going in retrograde, is going to reel that energy in and say, where are you being maybe a bit delusional? Where are you trying to avoid? Where are you not like locked in, honed in on responsibility? Where may you be a little bit too loose and free and just acting in a way that could translate as a form of escapism or overly romanticizing things, or, just kind of having on rose colored glasses, right? Anywhere where we don't want to be uncomfortable, Saturn is saying now for all of us, no, it's time to deal with this. It's time to make corrections. It's time to reel it in, get responsible, and deal with what is really going on, what is at hand, what is, and make the corrections where necessary. Again, this even goes with the theme of Virgo. Let's make things more efficient. Let's deal with what needs to be dealt with. It's only all to support us and our growth and our way forward. So after this, on September 6th, we have Uranus also going in retrograde, but in the sign of Gemini. So Uranus is this planet that is associated with rebellion, unpredictable change. It's like it's a freeing kind of energy. Like, so where things could be stuck or stagnant, Uranus is going to cause a shakeup. It's a liberating type of energy. And again, it can be very unpredictable. But again, it's going into retrograde. So it's going to be more of a self-reflective type of essence around this, internalized examination, the inner workings of things. But with it being in Gemini, this could specifically relate to the mind and our connections, say like our social connections. So with Gemini, Gemini is also ruled by Mercury. So it's really not just the mind and our thought process, but we could also throw communication in there. So imagine that this energy is going to say, hey, is there any where we need to change or clarify how we are seeing things? Will there be something unexpected that creates a shift in our understanding and how we are seeing things? For some of you, this could translate as a need to clarify your message, the way that you are communicating. Maybe there needs to be a change in your delivery, but it starts with a change in your understanding. So again, there could be something that really creates some kind of shift, whether internally or externally, that brings about some opportunity, even some new insights, some revelations, some new inspirations. And for some of us, we could even expect the unexpected in terms of getting messages or information that we just weren't, we weren't expecting. But all of this, how does it help you refine and create a clear understanding about your current path and how you are functioning? So this will actually, Uranus will be in retrograde in Gemini until November 7th. And then after November 7th, it will still be in retrograde, but then it will move out of Gemini and be in retrograde in Taurus, which gives a different type of illumination. And we'll talk about that then. So September 7th, mark your calendar, we have the full moon in Pisces, and it will be a total lunar eclipse. Now, you'll hear a lot of people this month talking about us entering eclipse season. This month, our full moon and our new moon are both in eclipse energy, and eclipses tend to reveal a lot. So again, this month, big change in mind, way of knowing or understanding, big changes in our processes, the ways that we're doing things, right? What is being revealed? So this full moon in Pisces, now remember again, Pisces is mutable water, and it's a softer kind of energy. Now, listen, if you're a Pisces, I'm not saying that you all are soft in a way that is offensive. This energy is soft in that it allows us to go beyond the rigidity of mind, the rigidity that can often be found with our attachments to so many things. Now, of course, there's a slippery slope in all of these energies and expressions. So while Pisces invites us to soften and go beyond just the constraints of the lower mind, the analytical self, the constraints of how whatever agreements have been made in this realm. It allows us access to, a higher expression of life and ourselves and our creative nature. It can also sometimes cause a slip into being disassociated with reality, and it can become kind of delusional in some ways, caught up in too much of a dream state. And we always talk about this in the energy, in the realm of energy, is that there is balance in all things. There's a higher octave and a lower octave to everything, not just astrological signs, to the chakras, to our minds, to everything, right? But this full moon in Pisces, because it is a total lunar eclipse, it really will be an invitation to soften, allowing expression of our dreams, those things that perhaps you feel so connected to, that it's part of your, we'll say your destiny, your expression, your purpose. Like you just feel so connected to whatever these visions or this drive, this motivation may be. This full moon will invite you to soften into that. But again, you have to be careful not to over romanticize or get too caught up in the essence of it that you escape reality. So it's important to have balance in all things. Now, the opposite of Pisces is Virgo, and Virgo, again, is more on the practical side, the more analytical. So we could think of this full moon really inviting you to have a dance, a balance between your imaginative and intuitive, while still balancing that Virgo intelligence of the analytical and the grounded. There's a middle ground that allows you accessibility into your higher realms and states of knowing, imagination, spiritual connection, creativity, feeling one with divine intelligence. But there still has to be that anchoring, that rootedness, that groundedness that allows you to not get too swept away in the other, the ether. But what this energy will also invite, especially with the solar eclipse energy, is an invitation to let go where necessary. There may be something that you recognize, you realize that perhaps you have been over romanticizing for some time. You have had those rose colored glasses on that no longer serves you. There may be some things that you realize you felt so one with, so merged with, you were certain that it was for you. And now you're starting to recognize perhaps that's not as true as I thought. So this energy will also be an invitation for some of us to allow closure where necessary. All right. So after this, on September 13th, we have a Mercury Cazimi. And basically, it's like Mercury is conjunct the sun. It's to say, imagine that the intelligence of Mercury is like right in the center of the sun. So Mercury, again, is about our communication. It's also about like travel, movement, commerce, but it really highlights our thought process and our mode of communication, which is connected to our process of thought. Well, there's going to be a big illumination, the sun, around this energy. So this could really highlight for us how we can be of service, having some clarity around that, because this is all happening within the sign of Virgo, the sun and Mercury being in Virgo when they come into this close connection. Again, Virgo does want to serve, but it wants to serve in a purposeful way. It wants to serve in practical ways. So it won't be odd if some of us have this illumination, this clarity around how we can be more practical in how we serve and be more clear in our communication. Now, I just want to highlight really quickly, when we say being of service, it doesn't always mean, especially in this realm, it doesn't mean how you're showing up as a practitioner. It can in part have to do with that, but how you serve is how you show up in every expression of your life. So how you are in service could be an act of kindness, and that you are being kind with your words. You're being kind through your behaviors. You're being kind through your acknowledgments. You're being kind through your expression, how you are being in every aspect of your life. It reminds me of the Gokai in Reiki that Yusui Sensei said to practice this from the moment you rise till the moment you go to bed. Your act of service is an extension of your emanation, your frequency throughout everything you do from the time you wake till the time you go to sleep. So in this energy, you may have some clarity around that, and also some clarifying around communication, either what you are communicating or what's being communicated to you by others. So on September 21st, we have the alchemist of the month, which is the new moon. We have the new moon in Virgo. The new moon is when the sun and the moon are in the same sign. And this will be a partial solar eclipse. Not only that, it's our second new moon in Virgo in a row. So I just want to say, if you want to know more in depth about eclipse energy, make sure that you are signed up for my newsletter, because you get access to some free downloads. One of them being a download called, well, it's not a download really. It's kind of set up like a course in a sense, but it's called Creating with the Moon and Stars. And there you will find these videos, the Energy of the Month video, but you also have some different details about these energies that we talk about, including the eclipses. So if you want to deep dive into that, go into Creating with the Moon and Stars for more insight. But this energy, this new moon, new moons, we tend to talk about, planting new seeds and planting our intentions. But this one, with it being in Virgo, it really brings this highlight to where we can honor our responsibilities and be diligent in whatever efforts, what we say we're going to do, what we say we're going to focus on, what we say we're going to prioritize. Really being diligent in that, and that being imbued in these new seeds of intention that we are planting, that we are going to be diligent with and follow through with and be efficient with whatever it is coming up for you personally. So just in this new moon energy, you could think about what can be done with more effectiveness, what needs to be reprioritized in your life, and how we can be useful in our support of others. Again, service. Remember at the beginning, I said this month is going to highlight, big changes in our mind, in our day-to-day, our process. This new moon is the time where you can get very clear, and even taking note, writing down what it is that you're going to do differently and what's going to be more effective for you at this time. Okay. And then finally, on September 22nd, this is the big one. So not only is the sun moving out of Virgo and will move into Libra, which is taking us out of this mutable earth into this cardinal air. So we're going to move out of just the grounded, practical, refining, redefining, making revision energy to Libra is going to say, now we have to find some equilibrium and balance in what it is that we have been refining. Because, whenever change is initiated, things can feel a little unstable. It takes a while to acclimate to the changes. So Libra is going to come in and help us in that acclimation process. And it's going to help us find some balance and harmony in what it is that is changing. It's also going to highlight relationship, like not just romantic, but the way we are relating to others or ourselves or these different aspects of our lives. So we'll talk more about Libra next month. But when this sun does move into Libra, you will start to have this consideration for what will create more balance and harmony in your life. Also, some consideration of what will be necessary to fall away, to release, but really honoring where you have come, how you have grown, what you have learned, the wisdom gained throughout this year up until this point. So, the same day we have the autumn equinox. And from the lens of numerology, this is a 9-month, which means it's the end of a cycle. And again, it is the equinox for autumn. So there is this symbolism here of what has been harvested, what has been learned, what has been experienced from January, the beginning of the cycle, the number 1, until this end point of a cycle, number 9. Now, in that, there's this opportunity to reflect on, again, the wisdom that has been gained, what it is that's still working for you, what it is that you appreciate, and what you are ready to release. Because we're starting to enter now the season of autumn, also known as fall, which is the initiation of change before the total release. So think of like this is the time when the leaves are changing, the foliage is changing before they drop and fall away. So what, again, as this whole month has invited us to recognize, what are we ready to allow or initiate change around, and simultaneously allow to fall away, allow closure, allow doing things differently for the sake of how we're going to move forward. So this is a very interesting energy. And again, with Libra season, it's often not, at this point, something that we're doing alone. This energy also will highlight partnership, collaborations, any healings around that versus even what may need to be nurtured. So we'll talk again more about Libra in October, but this energy, you definitely want to be clear and transparent about the commitments and agreements that you're making. So the teacher of this month for Energetic Alchemist Oracle is the Mystic. And the Mystic is similar to the Hermit card in Tarot. So what this energy really provides is recognizing that as we are invited to make all of these changes, whether internal with our mindset or external with our processes, there is this need to be in deep reflection and connection with us and our own divine nature, our connection to divine intelligence. Sometimes we need to step back, to step in, to really tap in and have an awareness of how we are being guided in a higher way. Now remember, this Virgo energy can be very analytical. And sometimes that can cause us to be on this hamster wheel of overthinking. And that can cause some frustration, confusion, and it can get kind of murky. Remember, balance in all things. So while our analytical capability is a gift, what is informing what we're analyzing is key. Are we being informed by our fears, our doubts, our worries? Or are we being informed by and guided by our higher mind, our higher intelligence? If we take the time to be in connection with our own divine nature, our own self-reflection, understanding the keys that have been unlocked to our own inner wisdom, it will really support not only the integration and the acclimation to these new frequencies, these new ways of being, supporting our evolution, but it will also support that act of service, the expression in our entire being. So if you have the Energetic Alchemist Oracle, this is a card that you can work with this month. See how it is speaking to you personally. Some people do altar work with the cards. You can read the description of this card in the guidebook or just meditate on it and intuitively tap into how it is communicating to you specifically. So that is it in terms of the dates to be aware of for this month. But we have some other beautiful things that I would love to invite you to. Since last month, I think it's only since last month that I started doing happy hours, an energetic happy hour on Friday nights on Reiki Radio's podcast YouTube channel. So what we're doing is it's free and it's live. So at 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 p.m. Eastern on Friday nights, grab your favorite beverage and join us live. You can interact with me and whoever is there as a co-host to chat in the chat box. We answer your questions. We include whatever your contributions are to the conversations. And each week we have a different theme. So last week we talked all about spirit guides and communicating with the non-physical realm. The week before that was all about the Akashic records. I think the one before that was about creating a spiritual business. And the initial one, I believe, was about reading Oracle, how to read Oracle intuitively in the different ways that we can work with this system. So this Friday, the first Friday of September, we're going to explore chakra energy and how to work with the energy projections that we are generating within ourselves, but also that we perceive in others. Now, this is going to be a conversation probably unlike any other that you've heard about the chakras, because I also will include aspects of chakra mirroring, which is how I personally teach the chakras based on channeling that I received probably in 2011, 2012, very long time ago. But it is how I teach the chakras now, and it people who have learned this way say that it really expands their view and understanding of working with chakra energy. So you are invited to join us for happy hour the first Friday of this month, and the following happy hours. If you're on my newsletter, you will always receive updates about what we'll be talking about. Aside from that, I will be teaching Intuitive Mastery live. Intuitive Mastery, as of right now, if you purchase it, you register for the class, you have access to the pre-recorded version. But every now and again, every couple of years at least, I do teach it again live. So I will be teaching Intuitive Mastery live. There are live classes, but if you're registered, if you miss the live event, you can still watch the recordings at your own convenience. But a lot of people love to take this one real time so that you can interact with me and we can go deeper into your own personal intuitive development. So that will come up in November, but you can register for it now. And you want to make sure that you register now because space is limited. Part of the reason why the space is so limited for this is because if you have ever purchased Intuitive Mastery in the past, even if you have access to it because you purchased Intuitive Reiki, which is a combo package, you still have access to the course and can attend the live version. So if you already have access, you've already registered for Intuitive Mastery in the past, you are invited to log into your student portal in November and join the live classes. If you have not registered yet, go to my website, theenergeticalchemist.com, look for the online courses and register for Intuitive Mastery now before the registration is full, just so that you have the option to attend. Okay. And again, if you can't attend live, the recordings will be available. But that class starts in November. And then I also want to remind you, be sure to check out the latest episode on Reiki Radio with my teacher, Franz. It was an incredible conversation. We also have some very interesting interviews coming up for you throughout the month of September. I also want to remind you about Otter Spirit. Again, I don't know how long they're going to give us the discount on these beautiful crystal bracelets. These are high quality crystal. They're not fake crystals. So you get the actual technology, the intelligence, the frequency, the energy that these crystals hold. But the beauty of what this company did is they curated Reiki stacks for us. So they reached out to me and asked me about the different energies of what it is we work with and connect with as Reiki practitioners for level 1, level 2, and level 3, what the points of focus are. And I shared that information with them, and they curated these beautiful Reiki stacks. There's 3 in every stack, based on the different points of focus and the levels of Reiki. So I did a whole video to break that down for you, or you can just use the link below, go directly to the site, order your own Reiki stacks or anything that you love on that site. And there's a discount code if you want it. Get it right away, because again, I don't know when the coupon code will expire, but you can enter Yolanda 20 for 20% off at checkout. And they come in different sizes. You can get the small crystals like I have. You can get the larger beads if you prefer those. I like the smaller beads because I like the way they look stacked. But the bracelets also come in different wrist sizes. That's what was incredible to me. So they come in small, medium, or large. Also not on the site, but you can custom order extra large. So all of that, Otter Spirit, be sure to use my affiliate link to get your discount, but also use the code Yolanda20 at checkout. All right. So thank you so much. Cheers to the big changes that September is inviting us to experience for the sake of our evolution and our growth. Thank you again for being a part of this community. Welcome to Reiki Radio's community. Welcome to the Energetic Alchemist community. And yeah, just I hope that in my efforts that the podcast has served you in any way that has been complimentary or helpful or encouraging on your path. If it has been, send me a message on Instagram at Reiki Radio. Let me know. You can create a post or a story, and I will share it in honor of celebrating this beautiful anniversary. If you are someone who has enjoyed working with the Energetic Alchemist Oracle, the same. Let me know. Send an email, send a post on Instagram at Reiki Radio, and I will share it in honor of celebrating the 6 years since the inception of this deck. Thank you so, so much. Have a beautiful September. I will see you all very soon. I hope to see you at happy hour. Bye for now.